It was Zane.
We're looking at several improvements on Zane, especially working things with his cryo build. I think we're looking at some improvements with his uptime when he's in his action skill.
Right.
You get combat bonuses and all
Kill
that.
skills and all that.
The kill skills, it's not as high as we want it to be. So I think Zane's going to get a lift in the future. So no hard commitments here on that, but
it's a common view in the Borderlands community that Zane has been the weakest and most underperforming Vault Hunter. For those of you who have watched my channel before, or one of my subscribers, you probably know that I don't really agree with that statement. We've done some pretty unique and awesome things with Zane on my channel, but I do think he definitely needs some buffs. So in this video, I'm going to be telling you guys 7 buffs that Zane needs that wouldn't make him overpowered or change the identity of who he is. So the first thing on my list is scaling the damage you get with Violent Momentum. Now, I put this first on the list because I think if this change was implemented alone, it would probably fix most of the issues people have with Zane. What scaling the damage would do would mean that it would leave the 20% base bonus you get from walking, but each percentage of movement speed beyond that would give an additional buff. Now, I'm just going to point out, if we increase our speed up to 250%, maxing out every speed skill that is in Zane's trees, and using a slide speed relic, the literal fastest artifact in the game, we only get a 30% bonus on top of Violent Momentum. So what this actually means to me is there is no point in spending skill points and upgrading speed skills, because these realistically only make you move faster in a game where you're playing against computers who can just auto-aim at you. There's not much of a benefit outside of the damage you get from Violent Momentum, which, according to my graph, isn't much anyway, and it's not worth it. I can roll a 25% weapon damage buff on a class mod, and that is almost the same as wearing a slide speed relic and maxing out all my skills to put my movement speed up to 250%. We already have to jump through hoops for our gun damage, so just make it a little bit easier. Number 2 on my list would be changing the augment Almighty Ordnance. Now, this augment really misses the mark. It basically lets out 3 missiles that do about 2,000 damage each, and if you get a kill, you get to reset your drone time. Now, there's 2 issues I have with this augment. The first one is 6,000 damage total is not any damage at all in this game. Hardened Zealots have upwards of 300k health. Now, I'm not saying that, we should scale this to be able to kill a Hardened Zealot, but 6,000 damage is incredibly low, and you will never be able to time this to actually get the kill. Now, a great upgrade to this would be, instead of throwing out 3 missiles, throw out 2 or 3 of your current grenade mod. Not only would this be extremely cool, but if instead of resetting action skill duration, if you get a kill with this, let us shoot this augment again. There's a class mod plus Calm Cool Collected that lets you reset action skill durations, so not only is this redundant, but in its current form, you can't even get a kill with it. Now, I think this is a really good suggestion. This just seems really fun to me to be able to chain nade kills together, and it can suddenly turn into a really useful augment that tons of people will start using. Now, third on my list is just going to be some small skill upgrades. I'm just going to list out some skills that I think could be upgraded and what those upgrades should be. I'm not necessarily going to give you guys reasonings for all this because there is a decent amount on the list. So here we go. The clone could also use duct tape mod. Best served cold does 0 damage right now. Once again, I think at 5 out of 5 it does just over 1,000 damage, which is absolutely nothing. This skill is basically worthless in my opinion. Doppelbanger should be set at 20k damage, and it should not scale down for action skill time. I think the 20k base is fine, but it would just be a nice quality of life thing if we could just leave it there. Binary system, another augment for the digiclone. So just like Best Served Cold, which I listed above, this would actually be much better if it did an actual amount of damage, and upgrading these 2 skills would actually boost the amount of cryo damage Zane can do himself, Right now, the actual amount of cryo damage he does is very low. Next, Salvation. If we buff this up to even just 20%, it would make some of the non-barrier builds viable, which currently, in my opinion, not many of them are, without going to some extreme lengths and using some very specific gear. Finally on my list, Bad Dose and Static Field. These are two augments for the Sentinel. Once again, you guys are seeing a trend here. These do no damage at all. The dot from Bad Dose, I've seen it do as low as literally 2 damage per second, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. Fourth on my list is Digital Distribution. This is another augment for the Digiclone that I think is pretty bad in general. There's definitely some utility in this, but it's usually useless. When you want your clone to tank some damage for you, it ends up not being a lot either way because of the amount of damage that Zealots do in general. So he'll either die very quickly. It's just not that useful even when it is useful. I hope that makes sense. What I would love to see here instead would be something insanely cool. Like what if, instead of spawning one Digiclone, you spawn 2 Digiclones? Now I understand this might seem crazy or broken, but I think it would be fine if they had decreased health and decreased bonuses from Boom Enhance. Now why this would actually be useful is because this would make old you a lot better, which would up your survivability, which I believe Digital Distribution was trying to do, and it would make your DPS a little bit better, because even if one clone gets killed, the second one would still be able to shoot his gun. Now before you guys say, well, which clone would you swap with? Just swap with both, keep it simple, but not only would this be really cool, but it would be a definite upgrade to the augment as what it is already. Fifth on my list is a Seein Red buff. Now, this is a capstone that I think misses the mark by just a little bit. This is usually terrible in almost all solo play because, simply put, when you're playing solo, you're getting all the kills. Now, where this is actually good, and where I am definitely willing to admit this is good, it's not a bad skill, it's a good skill. But it's good in some boss fights where there aren't many mobs until you pass a certain threshold, or during group play where you're not actually getting all the kills. Now, I think this should be buffed to include swapping with the Digiclone, also activates your kill skills, or dropping your barrier also activates your kill skills. Notably, I didn't mention picking up your barrier, which would add some steps you actually have to take to get your kill skills again. I think it would just give an extra little edge in builds that want to use it, and it would not break the skill. Most kill skills last 15 seconds anyway. Giving this buff would just help you keep your kill skills up for much longer periods of time, which is what this capstone is supposed to do, right? Sixth on my list, buffing playing dirty so that it lasts for a period of time instead of 5 shots. Real quick, I want to give credit to a user on Reddit named Endless Argument. I originally saw this post from him, and I believe this would be a nice upgrade to the skill without breaking it. Making it last for 15 seconds, or maybe even being able to stack the amount of shots you get with kills. I don't think it would break this skill. The 15 second or even a 10 second rule would not be bad here. It would just up the amount of guns that can actually get bonuses from this skill. Plus, when you max this skill out with Death Follows Close, it only gives about a 62% chance per shot. You have to actually wear a class mod to boost this to its fullest potential. So I don't think this upgrade would really break this skill, and I think it would just make it more useful in general. Number 7, and last on my list, would just be some quality of life changes. The main thing I want to mention here is, how come all of the augments on the left side of the barrier tree don't work when you pick up your barrier? The blue tree and the green tree clash so hard. Violent Momentum, which is the damage skill in the blue tree, pretty much requires you to run and jump and shoot to get the most effectiveness out of it. But if you're using the barrier, you're basically not able to use any of these augments on the left side, or you're forced to keep your barrier still and stay underneath of it and not get the full advantage of the kill skills. So I just think that some quality of life upgrades would be able to let you mix some of these trees together that don't go too well together, and it would definitely make Zane better overall. So these are 7 buffs I think Zane needs that would not make him overpowered. Some of these would just make him much easier to play for most people, and I think that's the main issue people have with him, is that he doesn't get the same straight damage percentage buff that a lot of the other characters have. You have to jump through hoops, and I think that some of the hoops you have to jump through just don't give enough of a reward at the end. Now, you don't have to agree with all of these on my list, but if you agree with any of them or you think of any of my suggestions would be cool, please comment which ones and what you would like to see. I worked hard coming up with a lot of these ideas, and I think overall they would be really good for him. So these were the 7 Zane buffs I think they could implement to just make him way easier and way more fun to play. I'm gonna leave my post to the Gearbox forums and Reddit. Come show some support. Maybe we can get the attention of Gearbox and they could see some of these and at least think about them. You know, I'm not expecting them to like make these changes, but if they could see some of these and read them and see what some like Zane mains are really thinking about and really wanting to be changed, I think maybe we could have some sort of impact. Anyways guys, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to my channel. I'll get back to the Zane build soon, don't worry. But hope you guys enjoyed this one. Have a great day. I'm out.